The dog was not supposed to be at gate 14. That was the first thing Sergeant Diana Reeves thought when she saw him pull. Not the alert, not the behavior, just the location. Rex had worked Denver International Airport for 6 years. He knew this terminal the way most people know their own kitchen. Left corridor narcotics sweep, right corridor explosives sweep, center hall crowd work. Gate 14 was not on the sweep route, but Rex was pulling toward it anyway. Not frantically, not with the explosive urgency that made new handlers nervous. Steadily. The way Rex pulled when he had found something real and was moving toward confirmation rather than searching. The difference was subtle. 6 years had taught Diana to read it exactly. She let him pull. That was the rule she had built her entire career on. When Rex decided something was worth moving toward, you moved with him. You asked questions later. The dog had earned that. 6 years, 237 confirmed alerts. A record that had put 3 trafficking operations out of business and recovered enough contraband to fill the evidence room twice over. You did not argue with that record. You followed the dog. It was a Tuesday morning in March, 6:47 a.m. The terminal was moving through its early rhythm. Business travelers with rolling bags and coffee cups, families with too much luggage and not enough sleep. The particular organized chaos of an airport at shift change when the first wave of departures was building and the overnight staff was handing off to the morning crew. Diana had worked this terminal for 9 years, 8 with a partner who retired, 1 with Rex. She knew the rhythm the way you know music you have heard 1,000 times. You stopped hearing the individual notes. You heard the pattern. And when something broke the pattern, you felt it before you understood it. Rex broke the pattern at 6:47. He stopped pulling left toward the narcotics corridor and turned. Clean and deliberate, no hesitation. Like a compass needle finding north. And he began moving toward gate 14 with the focused certainty of an animal that has already made a decision and is simply executing it. Diana followed. Gate 14 was running a 6 a.m. departure to Mexico City. Boarding had begun 12 minutes earlier. The gate area was clearing as passengers moved through the jetway. Diana scanned the remaining cluster of travelers automatically. Older couple, young woman with a laptop bag. 3 business suits. A man in his late 30s, standing slightly apart from the others near the far row of seats. Nothing obvious. Nothing that would have caught her attention without Rex. But Rex was not looking at the gate area the way he usually looked at a crowd. He was not sweeping, not moving through the standard pattern of a working dog assessing a space. He was locked, fixed on one specific point with an attention so complete it excluded everything else in the terminal. He was locked on the man's feet. Diana looked at the shoes. Dark sneakers, worn but not destroyed. Nothing unusual, nothing that should have caught the attention of a dog standing 40 feet away across a busy gate area. But Rex was moving toward them. She approached with her hand loose at her side, and her badge visible, and her voice at the register she had learned years ago. Not aggressive, not apologetic. The particular professional tone of someone performing a routine function in a public space who has done it enough times that it has become invisible. She said, "Good morning." She said they were doing a routine security sweep and she needed a moment of his time. The man said, "Of course." He said it easily. No hesitation, no micro-expression of alarm. He was well-dressed in the particular way of someone who understood what well-dressed meant in a business context. Dark jacket, clean shirt, pressed trousers. He looked like someone who flew regularly and had learned the language of airport interactions. He did not look at Rex. Most people looked at Rex. A 90-pound German shepherd in a police harness attracted attention. People smiled or stepped back or said something to their companions. Almost everyone registered him in some way. This man did not look at Rex at all. Diana noted this. Rex moved to the man's feet and sat down. Not a passive sit, a working sit. The sit that in 6 years had never once been wrong. The specific posture that meant Rex had found what he was looking for and was communicating it in the only language available to him. Precise, unambiguous, completely certain. He sat beside the man's left shoe and looked up at Diana. The man looked down at Rex for the first time. Something moved across his face. Not fear exactly. Something more controlled than fear. The specific micro-adjustment of someone who has prepared for this possibility and is now executing the prepared response. He said, "Your dog seems interested in my shoes." Diana said yes. She said he did. She said she was going to need him to step aside with her for a moment. She walked him to the secondary screening area at the end of the gate corridor. 2 TSA officers joined them. Rex walked beside Diana with his attention still fixed on the man's feet, with an intensity that had not reduced by a single degree since gate 14. The secondary screening area was a small room behind the main gate desk. Fluorescent lighting, a plane table, 2 chairs, a camera mounted in the upper left corner that had recorded every secondary screening at Gate 14 for 11 years. The man sat down across the table. He placed both hands flat on the table surface. Visible, cooperative, the posture of someone who had thought carefully about what cooperative body language looked like and was performing it precisely. Diana asked him to remove his shoes. He said, of course. He removed the left shoe first. Rex made a sound that Diana had heard exactly 3 times in 6 years. Not a bark, not a growl. Something lower and more specific than either. The sound Rex made when the confirmation was complete and what he had found was significant in a way that exceeded the standard categories. Diana looked at the shoe. It looked like a shoe. She turned it over. Standard sole, standard construction. She pressed the sides, the heel, the insole. The insole did not compress the way an insole compresses. She looked at Rex. Rex was completely still. Amber eyes on the shoe. Every muscle in his body absolutely quiet in the particular stillness of a dog that has done its job and is waiting for the humans to catch up. Diana pressed the heel of the insole again. It was not foam. What they found inside the shoes took the forensics team 40 minutes to extract and 3 days to fully process. The insoles of both shoes had been custom manufactured, not purchased, not modified, built from the ground up by someone who understood material engineering at a level that suggested either significant resources or significant training or both. Inside the left shoe, compressed into a space the thickness of a standard insole, were 47 documents, not paper documents, film. The kind of ultra-thin photographic film that had not been used for standard purposes in decades, but which remained the most reliable method for moving specific categories of information across physical borders without electronic detection. The documents were financial in nature, account numbers, transfer records, authorization codes, the specific architecture of a financial network that moved money in the particular pattern that forensic accountants recognized as the signature of a mature and sophisticated laundering operation. Inside the right shoe, also compressed into the insole space, was something different, a single piece of material that the forensics team initially categorized as packing. Something used to fill space and protect the film documents during travel. It was not packing. It was a list. 41 names, handwritten in a cipher that the department cryptography unit spent 6 hours breaking. When they broke it, the names resolved into a directory of individuals connected to a trafficking network that 3 federal agencies had been trying to map for 4 years. A network that moved people the way other networks move money, quietly, efficiently, through channels that looked legitimate from the outside and were anything but. The man at Gate 14 was not a courier in the ordinary sense. He was a coordinator, the person who held the map, the person whose shoes contained the architecture of something that 4 years of federal investigation had not been able to fully document. Rex had found it in 40 seconds. The department briefing happened on a Thursday. Diana sat in the 3rd row of the conference room at Denver Police Department headquarters and watched the federal liaison from the Financial Crimes Unit walk the assembled officers through what the documents in the shoes had unlocked. She watched faces change as the scope became clear. The particular shift of expression that happens in a room full of experienced law enforcement professionals when they understand they are looking at something larger than the usual categories. The room went quiet when the federal liaison said the number. 41 names, 11 countries, 4 years of an active network that had moved an estimated 300 individuals through routes that the documents in those shoes had now fully mapped. 41 names from a list inside a shoe, found by a dog who was not supposed to be at Gate 14. Diana looked at Rex sitting beside her chair. He was watching the presentation screen with the alert attention he brought to everything, not because he understood the slides, because he understood that Diana's attention was on the front of the room, and therefore the front of the room was worth watching. She put her hand on his head. He did not look away from the screen. She thought about Gate 14, about the pull she had felt through the leash at 6:47 in the morning, about the man who had not looked at Rex, about the insole that did not compress the way an insole compresses. She thought about what would have happened if she had not followed the dog. The man would have boarded. The shoes would have traveled. The list would have continued moving through whatever system it was moving through. 41 names would have remained unmapped. The network would have continued. She thought about this for a moment. Then she thought about something her first supervisor had told her on her first day working with a K-9 partner 9 years ago in this same building. He had said something she had written in the notepad she kept in her jacket pocket and had never thrown away. He had said, the dog does not know what it has found. The dog only knows that something is there. The dog only knows that the scent is wrong and that the person beside it needs to know. The dog's entire contribution to every case it ever works is this: it notices, it communicates, it trusts that the person beside it will do the rest, he had said. The dog's bravery is not in the finding. The dog has no concept of bravery. The dog's contribution is simpler and more profound than bravery, he had said. The dog pays attention when it would be easier not to. The dog does not dismiss what it finds because what it finds is inconvenient or unexpected or outside the planned route, he had said. The dog simply tells the truth about what is there. And then he had said the thing that Diana had carried for 9 years and would carry for the rest of her career, he had said. That is the rarest thing in any investigation. Someone willing to simply tell the truth about what is there, without agenda, without self-protection, without any consideration except accuracy, he had said. That is what the dog gives you, every single time, if you are willing to follow it. The man from Gate 14 was held without bail pending federal charges. The network his shoes had documented took 18 months to dismantle fully, 11 arrests across 4 countries, assets frozen in 7 financial jurisdictions, 41 names resolved into 41 cases that the federal agencies had been building toward for 4 years and could now close. Rex received a commendation from the department, a small ceremony in the main conference room, his photograph on the wall beside the photographs of the other decorated K-9 officers who had served Denver International Airport over the decades. Diana accepted it on his behalf because Rex had no concept of commendations. He had no concept of networks or financial crimes or trafficking routes or the number of lives represented by 41 names on a handwritten list. He had a concept of scent, of the particular wrongness of something that did not belong where it was, of the pull toward truth that every working dog carries as its most fundamental instinct. And he had a concept of Diana, of the leash that connected them, of the years of small communications that had built between them into something that looked like language, of the particular quality of her attention when she was following him versus when she was redirecting him. He knew the difference. And on a Tuesday morning in March at 6:47 at Gate 14 of Denver International Airport, when something in the air of the terminal told him that a pair of ordinary-looking shoes was not what it appeared to be, he had done what he always did. He had pulled toward the truth, and Diana had followed. That was the whole story. That was always the whole story.